It was a Sunday, the kind where the air feels too still, like the calm before a summer storm that hasn't made up its mind. We were sitting at the large oak table in my in-laws' dining room, the one they used for every birthday, holiday, and Sunday lunch like this. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, comfort food, familiar food. I'd had it 100 times in this house. I used to love that predictability. Past the gravy mark? My father-in-law, George, asked, tapping his fork gently against his plate. Sure, I said, smiling, handing it down. He gave me a grateful nod. Across from me, my wife, Natalie, was mid-sentence, something about a client who couldn't decide on a kitchen backsplash. She was an interior designer. She made people's lives beautiful. Or at least, that was the idea. Her sister Anna was next to her, sipping iced tea and scrolling something under the table. Their mom, Joyce, was watching everyone with that eagle-eyed concern that made her beloved and exhausting all at once. Everything looked normal. It was supposed to be normal. And then my phone buzzed. I glanced down casually, like I always did, just a reflex. One new message from an unknown number. Stay calm, they're filming you. That was it. 10 words. I felt my stomach twist, not in the obvious way, not like a punch. No, it was subtle. A slow turn, like when milk goes sour and you don't realize it until after the second sip. I didn't react outwardly. I couldn't. My body froze, but my face stayed still. Years of corporate meetings taught me that much. Never let them see your first reaction. I looked up. Natalie was still talking, laughing even. George was cutting into his chicken. Joyce was complaining about the new neighbors. No one looked off, but I couldn't unsee the message. Couldn't unhear the whisper in my mind. Filming you. Why? Who? Filming what? I turned my phone face down slowly, my hand hovering over it just long enough to look calm. I nodded at something George said. I think it was about the economy. I can't be sure. My ears were ringing. My vision was narrowing in that way it does when the world suddenly feels untrustworthy. Then came the second message. Look at the vase behind you. There's a pinhole camera inside. I didn't look. That would have been too obvious. But my mind started playing tricks. The ceramic vase on the mantel, behind me. White with blue flowers. Joyce's favorite. It had been there for years, hadn't it? Or had it? I couldn't remember seeing it last time. Or maybe I just never noticed it. My hands started sweating. My throat dried out, but I reached for the water like everything was fine. Natalie glanced at me briefly. You okay? She asked, her voice a little too casual. Yeah, I said. Just thinking about work. I've lied before. Small ones. The kind couples tell to keep things smooth. But this lie, it came from a deeper place. A place I didn't even know existed until that moment. I didn't want to alarm her. Or maybe, more honestly, I didn't want to give her the satisfaction. Another buzz. You're being set up. Don't react. I didn't. Not outwardly. But inside, everything went still. You know that moment when you're swimming and suddenly you're not sure how deep the water is beneath you? That's how I felt. Like the floor of everything I thought was stable had just dropped away. I looked at my wife, really looked at her. Her smile was practiced. Her eyes flicked to mine and then away too quickly. I thought about the night before, how she'd pulled away when I reached for her in bed, how she said she was just tired. Again, Joy spoke up. Natalie tells me you've been working late, Mark. Everything all right at the firm? I nodded. Just a busy quarter. Good, she said. You know, I always say, a man should be busy. Gives him purpose. Natalie laughed. Mom, he's not a golden retriever. Everyone chuckled. So did I? But I watched her. And when her laughter faded, she met my gaze for half a second too long. There was something sharp in her look. Calculating. I wanted to check the messages again, but I couldn't without tipping my hand. My brain raced. Who would send that? Why during this lunch? The vase. The camera. Set up. Another buzz. They want you to lose it. Don't. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. I put it down carefully. You're awfully quiet, Anna said, peeking over her glass. Just thinking, I muttered. George was talking again. Natalie joined in. They all seemed relaxed. But I could feel it now. Something in the air had changed. Like when you walk into a room and feel someone was just talking about you. I tried to breathe. Slow. In through the nose, out through the mouth. But it felt like I was rehearsing a part in a play I didn't audition for. Buzz. Smile. Say something light. They're waiting for a reaction. So I smiled. Sorry, I'm spacing out. Too much caffeine this morning. Anyone else feel jittery? Joyce laughed. Anna rolled her eyes. George made a joke about me switching to decaf. And Natalie? She laughed too. But her hand reached for mine under the table, squeezing just a little too tightly. That's when I knew. She knew about the texts. Or maybe she sent them. Her hand stayed on mine longer than it needed to. There was no warmth in it, just pressure. A coated grip. Like a warning. Or maybe a test. I held my smile. You all right? I asked her gently, quietly, like a husband concerned, like I hadn't just been told there was a camera behind my head and maybe a dozen eyes waiting for me to crack. I'm fine, she said, tilting her head. You seem distracted. I almost said, only because someone's watching us like a damn nature documentary, but I didn't. I nodded, swallowed the lump in my throat, and took another sip of water. The buzz returned. She'll provoke you soon. Be ready. I felt my pulse skip. I looked around again. The room hadn't changed. Lights streaming through the window, the hum of conversation, forks on plates, the scent of gravy and lemon vinaigrette. Everything looked the same, but I wasn't seeing it the same anymore. It reminded me of a story I once read about a man who walked into his home and just knew something was wrong. A crooked photo frame, a shoe turned the wrong way. Nothing big, just enough to whisper, "You're not safe." That's what this was now. Natalie pulled her hand away. I guess work is really eating you alive, she said louder, playful, but there was an edge underneath. Joyce chimed in. Don't pick on him, honey. He works hard. Oh, I know, Natalie said with a smile too bright. But you know what they say? All work and no play makes Mark a dull boy. More laughter. Mine included. It felt like sand in my mouth. Buzz. Don't deny. Don't defend. Let them talk. Talk about what? I felt something tighten in my chest. Not fear exactly. More like the early stages of fury. A quiet fire gathering oxygen. Natalie. I said, calm, casual. Can we talk for a second? Just you and me? Oh, she said, eyebrows up. Now. I nodded. Outside. Her eyes narrowed just a little. Can it wait? I shook my head slowly. No. George grunted as he set his fork down. Everything all right, son? Yeah, I said. Just need a word. Natalie stood, smoothing her dress. She walked ahead of me to the sliding glass door that led out onto the patio. I followed, hearing the muffled hush of chairs scooting, conversation halting. I didn't look back. Outside, the sun was too bright. The air still too calm. She turned to face me, hands on her hips, that same look she used to wear when I forgot to take the trash out or missed one of her client dinners. But this wasn't about trash. What is this about? She asked. You're acting weird. Buzz. She'll gaslight. Stay centered. I kept my voice steady. I got a message. Her expression didn't change. What kind of message? I held up the phone. From someone watching us. Right now. A beat passed. Just a flicker, but her eyes shifted. Not fear. Not confusion. Annoyance. She stepped closer. Is this a joke, Mark? I didn't answer. I pulled up the first message and held the screen out to her. She stared at it, then back at me. That's not from me. I didn't say it was. She sighed. So what? Some spam? A prank? You get a weird text, and suddenly you're interrogating me? Another buzz. She'll say you're paranoid. Classic tactic. I almost smiled at how perfectly she followed the script. You're not being honest with me, I said quietly. And you know it. She scoffed. You're spiraling. Am I? I said, eyes narrowing. Then why is there a camera in the vase behind me? Her mask cracked. Barely. Her lips parted for a second. Then she recovered. What are you talking about? I haven't turned around once. I haven't reacted. I haven't raised my voice. But you're still trying to push me into one. She crossed her arms. You sound crazy. Buzz. Keep control. She needs you to snap. The messages weren't just warnings now. They were lifelines. Whoever this stranger was, they understood something I didn't yet. They were seeing it from the outside. What's going on, Natalie? She didn't answer. So I kept going. Why today? Why during a lunch with your whole family? She looked away. You always think everything's about you. And you always think everything's a game. Her shoulders tensed. I remembered a conversation from 2 weeks ago. Natalie talking on the phone late at night. She said something like, he's too boring to notice anything. I thought she was talking about a client. But now I wasn't so sure. Buzz, you're getting close. Don't flinch. I took a breath and stepped back. I wasn't going to accuse her. Not without more. I was going to let her dig her own hole. I'm going back inside, I said. Whatever this is, I'm not playing. Her jaw tightened. You always were a coward. I didn't rise to it. I turned and walked back into the house, the air conditioning washing over me like a baptism. Anna looked up, curious. Joyce gave me a tentative smile. You all right, dear? She asked. I nodded. Just needed some air. I sat down again. I didn't touch the food. I didn't check the phone. I didn't turn to look at the vase. I just waited. And then came the final message of the afternoon. Don't leave until 2:15. Trust me. I glanced at the clock on the microwave. 2:07. I stayed. And when 2:15 came around, I heard it. A knock on the front door. The knock wasn't loud. Just 3 short taps, like someone trying not to draw too much attention. But it still sliced through the room like a knife. Everyone went quiet. Joyce looked up from her napkin. Are we expecting someone? No, Natalie said, standing up too quickly. I watched her. The way she hesitated before stepping toward the door. The way her hand trembled slightly as she adjusted her sleeve. She wasn't expecting that knock either, not now. Not yet. But someone was. Buzz. Watch her reaction. Don't interfere. I didn't. I leaned back slightly, just enough to keep the door in view. Natalie opened it slowly. I couldn't see who it was from where I sat, but I heard the voice. Good afternoon. Are you Natalie Carlson? She said nothing. This is a courtesy visit from the State Civil Investigations Bureau. We'd like to ask you a few questions regarding your involvement with the Lakehurst Consulting Group. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. That name, Lakehurst, where had I heard it? Then I remembered. One of Natalie's recent projects, a corporate rebrand, she'd said. Something she barely talked about, but billed as a huge opportunity. Is there somewhere private we could speak? George stood now, confused. What's this about? The man at the door was dressed like a lawyer, but carried the calm authority of someone used to uncomfortable truths. Just a few formal questions, sir. Your daughter's name has come up in an ongoing inquiry. Natalie didn't move. Her hands hung limp at her sides. Ma'am, the man continued. We can conduct this at the local field office if you prefer. But I imagine you'd want to resolve this discreetly. Still no response. Just the distant sound of a lawnmower down the street and the heavy silence hanging between them. Buzz, now's your moment. Say nothing. Just watch. She turned back toward us. Her eyes scanned the table, landed on me for just a breath, and something behind them buckled. A flicker of guilt? Fear? I couldn't tell. But I stayed seated. Excuse me, she said finally, her voice brittle. This won't take long. She stepped outside. The man followed, closing the door gently behind them. Silence returned to the room. George looked from me to Joyce, then to Anna. What the hell is going on? I didn't answer. I stood slowly, walked to the mantel, and finally, turned to look at the vase. My heart thudded as I reached for it, lifted it gently. Light. Too light. I turned it upside down. Nothing. No camera. No wire. Just ceramic and dust and lies. Buzz. It was never about the vase. It was about getting her to reveal herself. And she did. I sat down again. My legs felt hollow. Anna blinked at me. Do you know what's going on? I hesitated, then nodded. Some of it. Joyce leaned forward. Mark, please. We deserve to know. I don't think I'm the one you need to ask, I said softly. They looked at each other, confused and tense, the way people do when they realize the center has shifted. When the person they assumed was harmless suddenly feels like a stranger. The door opened again. Natalie stepped in. Pale. Eyes unfocused. Her breath shallow. They'll be in touch, she said, not looking at anyone. What was that about? George demanded. She didn't answer. She turned to me. For a moment, I saw her old self. My Natalie, the one who used to sneak extra strawberries into my breakfast, the one who would hum show tunes off-key while folding laundry. But that woman was gone. What did you do? She whispered. I didn't say anything. Buzz, you're done here. Leave. Quietly. So I stood, took my phone, walked past Joyce's shocked face, Anna's wide eyes, George's sputtering questions. As I passed Natalie, I leaned in, barely a whisper. You made your move. Now I've made mine. And I walked out. Epilogue. Later that night, at a small motel 2 towns over, I finally responded to the stranger. Who are you? The reply came almost instantly. Someone who was where you are. Someone she tried to ruin too. I stared at the screen for a long time. What now? I typed. Their answer chilled me, not because it was ominous, but because it was right. Now you start your real life. Without her.